Hi guys, can you hear me? You could just leave a question there. Can you hear me? You could just use the chat box to say yes. Okay, Shivan, thanks, man. Thank you so much. We'll start our session and we'll get on with the business of understanding what's a budget like. This is an interim budget, and I'll come to that in a while as to what is an interim budget and how is that different from a regular budget. Now, before we go there, let me bring to you a few more things. Here is the state of the global economy, because see, to understand what is it like, to run the Indian economy as far as the finance ministry is concerned, or for that matter, being a part of the Indian economy as that you and I are, in what context do we exist? In what context does the Indian economy operate? This is pretty important, my friends. We may say that we are growing at 7.3% this year, but in light of what circumstances are we growing at 7.3% as far as the RBI, just as the RBI had predicted? Now, when we look at the world economy, it's not doing pretty great actually. Let me just bring that in. And just before that, let me also bring in the state of the Indian economy. The Indian economy, my friends, is growing at 7.3% this year. That's what the RBI had projected. Now the projections vary between sources depending on what source you pick, like the finance ministry, the World Bank, the IMF, the Asian Development Bank, or simply put the RBI, as I just mentioned. Each of them would have a different number to share with you. Now, we are growing at 7.3% this year, and this is the third consecutive year in which we are likely to grow at over 7%. In 2022, we grew at, as I said, 2022, I'm talking of financial year 2022, the one that started on the 1st of April 2021, and the one that ended on 31st of March 2022. So if I put it this way, I'm sure that, it's much easier if I put it on the, screen for you guys. Okay. Clearly is something that started on financial year 22. When I say it started on April 1st, 2021, and something that ended on March 31st, 2022. So this is what the financial year is. That year we grew at 9.1%, and financial year 22 at 7.2%, and this year we are likely to grow at 7.3%. So that makes it the third consecutive year of plus 7% growth, and this is phenomenal considering that we have emerged from the COVID years. Now, we also need to appreciate the fact that the government of India is aiming at not just becoming a $5 trillion economy by 2028, but a recent research paper by the Minister of Finance has come out with even a staggering claim. The government of India says that we aim to become a $7 trillion economy by 2030. So in another 6 years, we would want to double up the size of our economy. Is it possible? Well, it is possible, but a lot of homework needs to be done as far as this is concerned. Now, Soma, I think there is a question here. Soma's asking, not visible, not audible. Am I not audible? Can anyone here say this? Soma, Sonia, yeah. Kumar, yes, Kumar says yes, I am audible. So I will go with the idea that I'm audible. Okay. Those of you who are not able to hear me, please check your system settings and all. Now, we have grown quite decently in the last 3 years, and there are a lot of reasons for that. But before we come to that and the kinds of dangers we face to our aim to become a $7 trillion economy, what is the state of the global economy? The global economy is slowing down, my friends. It's actually slowing down. Why is it slowing down? There are multiple reasons. What here? financial year 23 is same as a calendar year. The world takes January to December as a 12-month period, to submit accounts or for taxation purposes or for reporting financial stuff. So in this 12-month period, the world economy is likely to grow at 3%, likely to grow at 3%. But the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, has also said that next year this is likely to slow down to 2.9%. So it's already slowing down. Actually, in large parts of the world, it's slowing down. Germany is in recession. Japan is not doing great. So is the US. Though the US has had improved its growth in the last quarter of the previous calendar year or the financial year, it's not likely to sustain that. That's what the reports say. So what about the factors that are ailing, that are impacting the global economy? The most important reason is the high inflation. When inflation is high, our money buys less. When our money buys less, we have lower purchasing power. When we have lower purchasing power, our demand for goods and services decreases. So we have lower purchasing power and our demand for goods and services decreases, obviously suppliers do not resort to production. So when production actually goes down, the economic output also decreases, which also leads to lower employment generation. Lower employment generation would mean that people have no jobs. Most people have no jobs. No jobs would mean no incomes. No income would mean no purchasing power. No purchasing power would mean no demand for goods and services, or lower demand for goods and services. So it's a vicious cycle that people get into. And that's how inflation is impacting the world, my friends. And why did inflation come about? The major reason is that world over, there were stimuluses, like, the US government gave a huge stimulus to people, $1,200 checks. They gave to people who are unemployed, people who were sitting at home, people who didn't want to work. All of them got $1,200 plus. Now, what you need to know here is that this happened around the world. When people had money, they began to demand goods and services. Okay, and when they had money, they demanded, their purchasing power went up. They began to demand goods and services. Supply had to be there, and because of COVID, there was global supply disruption, especially in commodities like rice, wheat, and a lot of others. Consumer discretionary spending. So, lower supply meant prices went up, and that's how it impacted. Now, high inflation creates its own problems. As we just mentioned, higher inflation leads to in the long term, it leads to its own problems. To battle high inflation, global central banks, I'm talking of global means major central banks around the world. We are talking of, let's say, the US Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank, or the Bank of Japan, Bank of England, the Indian, central bank called the Reserve Bank of India. We all raised interest rates. When we raised interest rates, loans became expensive. When loans became expensive, people like you and me, refused to borrow, because we saw that we were paying more in interest. So, people began to borrow less. And when people were borrowing less, essentially, what do people borrow for? People borrow for spending, either in production, they invest in production, or to buy stuff. So when people are borrowing, things were good, but now people are not borrowing. So what happened? Again, to battle inflation, as interest rates were raised, you and I had less money because banks had raised interest rates. Okay, so monetary tightening happened. This led to higher interest rates. Now, there is a fear of recession. Now, what's a recession? We have a growth rate. A growth rate is between quarters, or sometimes generally calculated on an annual basis. So there is no central definition of recession. Okay, but let me bring in something very simple. The simple definition of recession is when the growth contracts for two consecutive quarters. You have a recession. So if let's say in quarter one of this financial year and quarter two, the growth contracts, instead of producing more, we produce less over the same period, corresponding period previous financial year. We produce less, so we would, then we would have a recession. Please understand, it is not expansion but contraction in economic activity. So when people expect a recession, that is economic output contracts, what happens? People are afraid. When people are afraid, they don't invest in production capacities, or they don't spend money, whatever money they have, as it could be investable surplus, like you have some additional money to buy a car, a house, or you want to buy a TV, you want to buy a mobile phone, it could be anything. Or if you're a business person, you want to invest in production capacity to, to cater to a market demand. You somewhere realize that things may not be very good in the days to come. What do? You simply don't spend. When you don't spend, you don't create demand for goods and services. When you don't create demand for goods and services, again the cycle starts. So it's a vicious cycle. But many people say the fears of recession are overblown. Do we have a global recession? In the coming, do we have it now? No, we don't. But Germany has it now. A lot of economists in the West, especially people like Dr. Nouriel Roubini, who's also called Dr. Doom. Okay, Nouriel Roubini, then the CEO of JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon. All these guys at various points have voiced the fears of a recession. They say that it's coming, it's coming. Now, has it come? Well, till date, it has not come in the US, and of course, we are not likely to have it in India. But if it does come, then it could be trouble. So from 2.9 that's been predicted for the current financial year, that is the current financial year 2024, that is this calendar year, things will get worse, my friends. Things will only get worse. We may not even have 2.9, we may have much less than this. Now let me take you further on this. Another danger is a major slowdown in China. Is the Indian economy immune to what's happening in China? Is the global economy immune to what's happening in China? Not really. While we may not be impacted by what's happening in China, the world economy does. So what is it like in China? See, the Chinese economy is the second largest economy by GDP. You all know what's GDP. GDP is gross domestic product. That's how we pronounce it, gross domestic product. Gross domestic product of, is a sum total of all the goods and services produced in one country in 1 year. So if you go by Chinese GDP, it's likely to be $17.1 trillion. Okay, $17.1 trillion. Now, America is about 25.96. So let's make it 26, and India is about $3.73 trillion. This is India. Okay, this is China. My handwriting isn't great, so you'll have to bear with that. Okay, now let's take it further, and you will find that China is likely to grow. Last year, it grew at 5.2%, 5.2% in financial year 23, and this year the growth is likely to come down to 4.5%. We'll take the financial year as the calendar year, January to December. Okay, now guys, why is the Chinese economy growing slow? Why is it going to slow down? Because of multiple reasons, but I'll bring in one major reason: the real estate crisis in China. There are two reasons. Let me bring in two reasons. Okay, I thought of discussing only one, but now I'll bring in two. One is the real estate crisis. What is the real estate crisis in China? See, the Chinese economy is propelled by real estate. 30% contribution to the GDP of China comes from real estate. It's actually 29%. I rounded it off to 30%. So 30% of the Chinese GDP comes from real estate profits. Now, the real estate sector, for multiple reasons like government intervention, and second more important reason is that a lot of these real estate companies have resorted to huge borrowings. Now, they borrowed a lot of money, so the government cracked down on these companies. The government said, you cannot borrow so much, you'll have to repay. Now they did not have, because of COVID and all that, they did not have money coming in. When they did not have money coming in, they failed to service the debt, they failed to repay the debts, they failed to repay the interest as well. So what happened was that, real estate prices crashed, so, and prices crashed. The homes that they were building, were not much in demand. You may wonder, hey, come on, when prices would crash, obviously people would demand more. No, people had already paid for these homes. And you should know one more thing, that in China, home ownership is about 96% in rural areas. So 96% of all people living in rural areas own a home of their own. It is something like 87% in urban areas. Okay, urban areas, it is 87%. So you think about that. People already have homes, but they have purchased. Now they found that these companies had a lot of debt, so they could not complete the home, the home they had purchased. So there were lots of buildings that were left unfinished. On one side, they were left unfinished. Second thing, these companies that had purchased a lot of equipment that goes into buying house, building a house, cement, concrete, wood, electric cables, all kinds of things, everything, steel and all. Now they could not repay the suppliers. You understand this? If I am a supplier, I don't get repaid. You are a supplier, you don't get repaid. How will you pay your suppliers? Your suppliers, your workers. What about the loans that you are taking to run your business? So this had a cascading impact in the Chinese economy. Things are pretty bad in China, my friends. Not only this has impacted consumer spending. Let's say I own a house. Now the value has crashed, but I have an EMI to pay. Because I have already taken a loan. The house is there, it's not finished. I can't, it has no value because it's not finished. Okay. Now the thing is, I, for one, basically, have other expenses. I have an EMI. I have living expenses. I have a huge EMI. So whatever the income I have had would go towards the EMI and living expenses. Am I left with a lot of money? Not really. So if I have limited spending, and people are worried about the future, when people are worried about the future, they don't spend now. When they don't spend now, the overall demand for goods and services decreases. So it has impacted a lot. Chinese economy, we may say that grew by about 5.2% last year and likely to grow at 4.5% this year. I do not believe the Chinese numbers. Okay, it's some other day we could discuss this, but it's very difficult to believe the Chinese numbers because the Chinese government, even in fact the Chinese Prime Minister Li Keqiang, the older guy, he's dead now. He died in October last year. This guy had openly stated that most data points in China are fictitious. They just don't exist they exist only on paper but not in real life. So a lot of GDP numbers are inflated to attract more money into the economy, especially from the foreigners. Okay. So things are likely to be pretty bad as far as China is concerned. And if China slows down, let's say real estate, what goes into real estate? Copper. A lot of copper goes in. See, copper is a major export item of Zambia, Chile, a lot of other countries. So when these countries like that export copper, that export bauxite, that export iron ore, platinum, and all the stuff that China normally consumes, what would happen? China consumes less. When China consumes less, these economies don't export a lot. When their exports fall, their economy goes into a tailspin. It goes into a tailspin. When it goes into tailspin, their economies fall. When their economies fall, if they are buying our products, they were buying our products in the past, now they would not buy because they don't have enough money. There is large scale unemployment in their country. So things go like this. So we are not immune. We may not be directly impacted by what's happening in China, but yes, indirectly we do get impacted. And those of you who want to know one more thing about China, this is it. China unemployment rate might say the numbers might say it's about 5%. Don't believe that. Today, the unemployment rate in China is about 29%. So youth unemployment, not unemployment, youth unemployment. So people at the, up to the age of 29 years, 29%, more than 1/4 of the young people in China are unemployed. Yeah, that's something that we need to worry about. So we may say that, look, we may not be impacted. We don't export a lot, but whatever we export, we may get impacted by that. And if you are an exporter in India, your business may suffer. If you employ people. If business suffers, you employ people, they may lose jobs, or they may get lower incomes, or you may default on loans that you are taken to start a business or run the business. You see how it impacts? This is how you should think, my friends. Okay. From here, let me take you further on this. I think there is one question here. Let me just let me take this. Okay. I'll take the questions as they come. Golden Kumar, I don't know how, the name is Golden Kumar. He says, if this is a vicious cycle, then how do we overcome recession? It takes time. It takes time. It takes a lot of money to come into the market. The government has to be proactive. Like the Chinese government is being proactive. It's lending to a lot of companies, but those companies that have done really bad are, like companies like Country Garden, a major real estate company, Evergrande, they have been asked to, liquidate by a Hong Kong bank and all, Hong Kong court. But it is unlikely that the Chinese government will let that happen. Okay, let us see how things work in China, because the Chinese economy is like, it's a very difficult, it's a puzzle. Not many people understand it. We may say that, look, China is a communist country and everything is owned by the people. Yeah, then how come they have a house ownership? One more thing. Okay, Deepak Kumar has a question. How many we import from China in value, billions of values? About $115 billion worth of goods we buy from China, 115, about 118 or 115, and we barely export about 13 to 15 billion dollars. You know that? Just about 13 to 15 billion dollars we export. Less than 20, we import around 115. This is a major issue as far as China, our trade with China is concerned. We have a huge trade deficit. Okay. Yeah, Ashwin, I was coming to the Chinese thing. Ashwin is asking about, I mentioned two reasons. One is that the real estate. What is the other reason about China? Well, the other reason about China is the age. Yeah, population. Population is falling in China, my friends. Population is falling. See, the median age, okay, the median age in China is 29.8. This is the median. Oh, no, sorry. The median age in India is 29.8. Okay, let me clear this and write it properly. India, median age 29. Let's make it 29. Okay, what about China? China's median age is 39. Okay, America is around 44. Which is one of the oldest countries in the world among large economies? Italy, Japan. Japan's median age is about 40. Japan, about 48. So this is a median age. We are a young country. But China, because of the one-child policy, okay, see, the one-child policy came. This is not a talk about China, but it is very important for us to know. People who call for that the government of India should impose population control and all, this is all, these things don't work. They should not work, actually. 1979 till 2016, they had one-child policy. Okay. Now, what happened? Fewer babies were born. Fewer people, fewer babies came into the labor force. People and their parents got older, but fewer were joining the labor force. And this is the problem. The age has gone up. People now, China has got into what is called a middle income trap. Okay, middle income trap. Middle income trap is China's GDP, per capita GDP is about $12,000. A little over $12,000, but they are likely to stay there if they don't go further than this. See, China's population shrank by 2 million. Do you know this is the first time China's population has shrank? It went down by 20 lakh. So China's population in 2023 was less than the population in 2022. Yeah. So this is not a good thing, my friends. We may say it's a good thing, but it is not. Fewer Chinese women are, giving birth. They don't want to have babies. because life is becoming expensive in China. Wage rates have increased, cost of living has increased. Fewer people are getting jobs, and overall career mindedness has increased. That is, more women want to focus on their career and all that. So these are things that actually lead to shrinkage in population. Okay. So I guess from here, let's go a little further, my friends. Okay. I think I'll just clear this so that I can actually bring in what I was talking about. Okay. See, I'm sure that you have a lot of questions. I can see so many questions here, but I'm sure you don't expect me to answer all of them. I'll expect you to to be a lot more patient. Yeah, to be patient. How about recovery? Is there one question from Santosh? How about recovery of loans given to residents who haven't received their house from Evergrande? The company cannot do anything, and the government cannot do anything, my friends. The government doesn't want to get into this. Please know this. Okay, it's a private company, and so the government doesn't want to get into that. So India's well, we look at the global situation now, the situation of the Indian economy, and what dangers does it face. So I'll come back to this in a while. I'll take your questions as we go further, my friends. Okay. Here. See, there's not much for me to discuss here because this is the financial year. As you can see this number here, this is what we grew by in the first 6 months. But the annual growth is expected to be 7.3% as far as the RBI and the NSO, National Statistics Office, is concerned. So we are likely to end the financial year 2024, that started, as I said, on 1st April last year. We are likely to end at 7.3%. That, ladies and gentlemen, would make us the fastest growing large economy in the world. We are growing phenomenally fast, but there is always scope to grow further, isn't it? I think these numbers, this is just for you, my friends, nothing more than that. In our magazine Current Affairs Cracker and MBA Education Careers, you guys would have gone through articles. The previous issues had article on external debt, what is debt, and all that stuff. Okay, so all these numbers come from authentic sources. Most of the data comes from Government of India sources. This is not my data. I haven't created it. Okay. So the 4th biggest economies here, it's 4 basically. 5. India's rank is 5. US is little over 26. Let's make it 26. China 17. I'm taking round figures, my friends. Okay. 3rd would be Germany, though Germany is going to go bad this year. I said 4.4 because Japan is in the 4th place, and that, ladies and gentlemen, has 4.1. That's why that 1 decimal after this. Okay, so Prime Minister Narendra Modi says that India should be growing faster, and he says that we will grow faster by 20. Yesterday he has said that in my 3rd term, India will become the 3rd largest economy. It is most likely that we'll become the 3rd largest economy by 2028. But that, again, is subject to a lot of conditions. Now, what are these conditions? So what are the dangers to our economy? Let me bring to you some dangers to our economy. Okay, we looked at the global economy. So what about the dangers to our economy? Our economy has, dangers like conflicts. What are the conflicts? 2 major conflicts, or rather 3. 1, Israel Hamas. So Israel Hamas. Okay, I am putting a hyphen here. Then Russia Ukraine conflict. Then we have this conflict in the Red Sea. You may call the Red Sea attacks involving the Houthi Shia rebels in Yemen and all that. Okay, so 3 major conflicts. Then there is this issue of disruption in energy, disruption in supplies. Disruption in 1, energy supplies, oil and gas supply, and 2, commodity supplies, iron ore and all that stuff. If supply gets disrupted, prices would increase. If prices increase, things would go really bad. As you know, what we just discussed, what happens when prices increase. Okay, so these are the major conflicts as far as India is concerned, my friend. These are external factors. Within India, what if in the 2024 election, in the general election, there is, there is no single party emerging as the largest party, or the coalition doesn't, the NDA coalition doesn't win a majority? There could be instability. If there is instability, political instability, it could lead to its own problems. So political instability leads to indecision as far as policy is concerned. When policy is not stable, it leads to a series of issues, my friends, negative issues. So I think somewhere down the line, appreciate the fact that we are doing quite well despite all these conflicts. So this is, again, this will tell you the impact the world has on us. Okay, we discussed a while ago, that if the world catches, sneezes, we may catch cold. We may not catch a severe cold. We may catch a cold, of a lower degree. Look at these numbers. See, this includes both merchandise exports. I wrote here merchandise. Oh, this is red actually. Merchandise exports and services. So a while ago, I have had some numbers with me. I just seem to have misplaced them somewhere. Any which way, does not matter. If I look at this, you see this, the exports of our goods are actually falling, my friends. These are exports, imports, exports, imports. Exports, you may say that they're rising. What's rising? Exports of merchandise goods falling and services are rising. Okay, why are merchandise exports falling? They are falling because of the global slowdown. Okay, the second thing, look at the imports. We imported, our imports were higher, previous year than now. You may wonder, isn't this a good thing? Not really a good thing, my friends. For example, why has there been a fall? The fall has been because of a fall in oil prices. We bought a lot of oil from Russia at a lower price, so the oil import bill has gone down drastically. Yeah, plus there are some sectors in India which haven't been doing great because we have had an uneven recovery post COVID. Okay, which also means that if some sector which had been importing raw material for production is now not doing well, would mean it would not import raw material, or would import of a lower quantity, which means that the total import bill will also decrease. So this is how you look at things. So the global situation is very fluid, not really doing great for all of us. But if things go well, if we export more, in the days to come, because the government of India has a target, an ambitious target of raising our share in global trade to more than 5%. This is an ambitious target. So in the near term, 5%. Over long term, it's about 15%. But these are all, what is on paper like this. I have written some notes here. So this what I would discuss is what on this basically. Okay. So from here, let's go. Saransh Soni. Mustafa Jalal has a question. Can you tell us how each conflict affect our economy? Not really. See, it's very difficult to quantify that. But you look at Red Sea conflict. Red Sea attacks by the Houthi rebels. What would happen? Ships would not go past the Red Sea. Yeah, they would not go past the Red Sea. Do not take the Suez Canal route. If they don't take the Suez Canal route, they would have to take the entire, the way around Africa, which is very time consuming and very, very expensive. Insurance costs shoot up. When insurance costs shoot up, they add to cost of production. When travel costs, transportation costs shoot up, they add to cost of production. So that is how things go bad, my friends. Okay, Mustafa, I hope I answered your question there. Can you please quantify? Okay, getting oil at discount. It's good to get oil at discount, but then there are problems. It may impact our relationship with certain other more reliable suppliers, with the United Arab Emirates, with what is called the Saudi Arabia. These two have been our most reliable suppliers. Apart from, of course, our largest supplier, Iraq. Okay, we have purchased more oil from Iraq over the last 10 years than with Saudi Arabia or with the United Arab Emirates. So overall, it's a good thing to be buy at discount, but considering that the government of India has always prioritized national interest, with any government for that matter, so any government at the center, though you would like to think that the current government is prioritizing national interest. It's been the case with most governments actually. In fact, I would say all governments. Okay, so things are pretty good as far as, because if you buy at lower price, it's always a good thing, isn't it? Yeah. Our oil bill goes down. You know how much do we spend on oil? Last year we spent $120 billion on buying oil. India imports about 80% of its energy needs from outside. 80% is a long, is a long list of, there is a long list of countries from where we import. Now also remember, we have to pay a lot, and also this has impact because we can use this foreign exchange if we produce our own good, or we reduce our dependence on oil imports, fossil fuels, oil, gas, and everything. Then we may spend this money elsewhere, my friends. But now we are not able to spend this money because $120 billion per annum goes into buying oil and gas. This is the reason why the government of India is being proactive in asking people to move to renewable sources of energy, solar. Yeah, you have electric vehicles and everything. Okay. Anup has a question. What is PPP, purchasing power parity? Anup, purchasing power parity is what PP is, purchasing power parity. Okay, it means the conversion of the US dollar into the purchasing power of the local currency. Simply put, the conversion of the US dollar into the purchasing power of the local currency. $1 would buy more in India than it would in the US. So when you look at nominal GDP, okay, we are growing at we have a total GDP of $3.7 trillion. Is it 3.7? It's actually much more than that. We've seen these numbers. I'll just show this, bring this back because Anup has asked this interesting question. See this here, it says 3.73 nominal. On paper, it's 3.73. If you take only dollar value, but if you convert the dollar into the purchasing power of the Indian rupee, we get $13 trillion. That, ladies and gentlemen, would make us the third largest economy in the world. And that's a pretty good thing because a rupee here would buy more than it would buy elsewhere. Okay, a dollar in India would buy more than it would buy in the US. So you should always look at it that way. Okay. If you look at what is the biggest economy in the world by PPP, China, $30 trillion. Their $17 trillion becomes $30 trillion under purchasing power parity, and the US will remain at 26. Of course, it's the US dollar we're looking at. India is the third largest economy, my friends. Okay. Yes, Kushank, this way China would also be very close to the US. Yes, purchasing power parity, it is close. 30. In fact, its economy is bigger than the Chinese, the American economy. China's GDP in PPP terms is $30 trillion. America at $26 trillion, and India at $13 trillion. Okay, I hope you got this, guys. So we look at this. I mentioned this. Overall foreign trade has actually gone down, my friends. Okay, things are going to get bad. If things continue like this, if the conflicts continue, if the Red Sea attacks continue, we are likely to suffer more in the months to come. Right? Chalo. From here, let's look at some basic terminology. Okay. Now you may wonder, come on, Bharat could have started this with this basic terminology. No. Sometimes basic terminology should come later, and this is one of those occasions because we should always start with something that's interesting rather than something that's boring like jargon, terms, and all that. So what's a financial year? Now I have made the PPT in such a way that even if I am not around here, sitting here, you can actually read this definition and understand what is a financial year. Okay, I hope you appreciate the fact that we have put the definition there on the screen for you. It's a 12-month period. It could be any 12-month period. For example, in China and Japan, they take, I am putting in short, they take the calendar year. What is the calendar year? It starts in January 1st, ends on December 31st. So the calendar year is also the financial year in Japan. In India, the financial year starts on 1st April and ends on 31st March of next year. Okay, so we are in financial year 24. This started, I think I just put in a carry here. Okay, guys, that's how it is. So when we say FY24, this is what means. But wherever I've used FY24 before this, it's a calendar year. Remember this, I took the calendar year, January to December. Okay, globally it's January to December. We are looking at this one. In the US, the calendar year is the US Federal Reserve takes it as 1st October to 30th September. This is for the central bank. For the companies, it's always a calendar year. Okay. Yes. Why do we have Ninad? Is a very different question, not for us to discuss now. Why do we have the calendar year and fiscal year different? This is a British colonial reason. The British colonial hangover is what we have, so we'll not go there now. Okay. So let me clear this. I hope you got it. So when we say financial year 24, from now on, financial year 24 would be the one that we are in now. Is going to end on 31st March. Okay. So this is very important. What are the different types of accounts? You sit for any kind of interview these days, any competitive exam, these kinds of questions come. What are the different types of accounts that are related, associated with the budget? So number one is the Consolidated Fund of India. Okay, what's the Consolidated Fund of India? Well, the Consolidated Fund of India, my friends, is the main account of the Government of India. What is it? The main account of the Government of India. All revenues earned by the Government of India, tax, non-tax revenue, I'll discuss this in a while, but all the money that Government of India gets, that's deposited in this account. All revenue of the Government of India is deposited in the Consolidated Fund of India. Number two, any money the Government of India needs to spend can be withdrawn only from this account. Okay, so defense spending, welfare scheme spending, interest payments, all money towards expenses can be withdrawn only from the Consolidated Fund of India. So to repeat, the most important account, it is the most important account. Two, all revenues of the Government of India are deposited in this account. Okay. Three, money necessary for expenses can be withdrawn only from this account, and this can be withdrawn only with the express approval, permission of the government or the Parliament of India. Parliamentary approval is most important here, is mandatory, compulsory. Without Parliament's approval, no money can be withdrawn from the Consolidated Fund of India. Now you may wonder, they may have expenses throughout the year. So the Parliament sometimes is not in session. How do they get the permission of the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha? Well, for that reason, soon after the budget is presented, the finance minister presents what is called the finance bill. Sometimes it's called the appropriations bill, but they're slightly different. Anyway, finance bill. In that finance bill, one-time permission is taken from the Parliament. Look, this is the money we require, and we will withdraw this from the Consolidated Fund of India. Okay. So that's the consolidated, most important account. Second is this Contingency Fund of India. The word contingency means emergency, something that you don't budget for, something of risk basically. So money from the Consolidated Fund of India can be withdrawn to meet expenses of an emergency nature. What is an emergency nature? Well, earthquake, flood, drought, some kind of a natural disaster. Okay, a dam burst, something like that. So you don't budget. You see, when the budget is presented, it's not written, okay, we will put aside 20,000 crore for earthquake relief. Who would know there would be an earthquake or not? So money is not budgeted for natural disasters. But when a natural disaster occurs, money could be withdrawn from the contingency fund of India to meet such expenses. Okay, but once the expense is made, permission is sought from the parliament after it reconvenes. After the MPs come back to the session, permission is sought. Look, we had spent money like this, so please approve this now. So the approval comes post facto. There is a term in economics and of course basic English, post facto, which means after the fact, that is after the incident. So money, is spent first, permission is taken later. Okay, it's about, I think, this current year there is no contingency fund mentioned in the budget, but last year it was, I think, 8,800 crores something. If more is required, it can be withdrawn. Please understand, there is no specific account, there is no account in which this money is put. It's just on paper, so and so money is put in this account. Now what about Shreyan's, how much does the approval need to be unanimous? It's always by majority, and no one stops. Okay, it's always +1. In democracy, +1 system works. Okay, so if 222 people say yes, this has to be 1 plus more than that. Say 220 people say no, it's still yes, no, isn't it? It's always +1 majority in democracy. Soumya Srivastava, how is the money allotted to the contingency fund? It's simply it's written in the budget, so and so money will be given to the, will be deposited in the contingency fund. It's just an entry, okay, like a bank entry. That's it, nothing else. Now what are these public accounts? Public accounts are, they include money. They have money owned by you and me. We own the money, but these accounts are kept in government's trust. They're kept in government's trust. Okay, so what kinds of accounts are these? Postal savings. Postal savings. You have Kisan Vikas Patra, KVP. You have a post office savings account, Sukanya Samriddhi account, all that stuff. These are public accounts. Employees Provident Fund. All these are public accounts. So we deposit our money there as savings. The government pays us interest. Why do you think the government pays us interest? It uses our paisa. Because it uses our paisa, it pays us interest. Remember, these public accounts are, basically accounts held by the government, but are kept in government's trust. Okay? So, who is the responsible authority taking contingency fund? Government of India. The government of India means the ruling party, ruling coalition, which makes the government of India takes the permission from takes the money from the contingency fund. Okay, guys, these are all simple questions here. Don't worry too much about this. No, Divya, fixed deposits don't come under these public accounts. Fixed deposits don't come. See, when you go to a bank and put money in a fixed deposit, the bank uses that money. Please remember, the government does not use that money. Bank uses that money. Okay, that's why it pays you interest, and it uses that money to lend somewhere. So if I borrow money from a bank, you are deposited, let's say Divya, you are deposited in a bank, you get 7% interest. I borrow money from the bank, I pay, let's say, 15% interest. So the 8% margin, you see, you get 7%, I pay 15%, 8% margin. That's what the bank earns. 8 budget will take 8% will take care of its administrative expenses, pensions, salaries, establishments cost, rents and all that, AC condition, all these expenses, and then of course it's profit. Okay, so from here let's go further. Yeah, running short, guys. Yes, Shriman, don't worry, your money will be safe. He says that if there's a huge recession, will the government pay us back, pay the interest back to us? It will, don't worry. Your money is safe. Your money is very safe. Okay. We have never had such a thing. So what's the budget? The budget document and all that. See, my focus in this talk will be primarily on the bigger picture. The allocations you already know. Since the budget was presented 4 days back, you must have gone through newspaper articles, website stuff and all that, where you would have found the highlights of the budget, that defense has been allocated X amount, rural development ministry has been allocated this amount, national rural employment guarantee act has been given 86,000 crore, all that. Those allocations are easy to know, but more important things from the our what we say, from the interview point of view, whatever interview we are sitting for, okay, is this term, understanding of terms like this, right? And I'll bring in hardcore data to you. What's the economic survey? We haven't had an economic survey this year, okay? We haven't had an economic survey, but the economic survey will come, I think, when the main budget is presented. I'll come to that in a while. So this is the assessment, evaluation of the performance of the Indian economy in the current financial year. So this actually carries all stuff between April and December. How is the economy done? 9 months they take and they make an assessment. Trust me, this is one of my most favorite documents, and I was greatly disappointed that this did not come this year, but it's going to come. It's going to come shortly. But instead, there was one document that the government of India published this year. If you're interested, you could go through this. It's called the Indian Economy, a Review. See, as your teacher, I'll always share my sources with you, okay? It's called the Indian Economy, a Review 2024. And it's written by, who is the author of this? It's written by India's Chief Economic Advisor. Of course, he's the my bap of this, but of course, there is a huge team behind him. The Chief Economic Advisor is V. Ananta Nageshwaran, V.A. Nageshwaran. Okay. So that's the economic survey. So what's a budget? The budget is presented on the 1st February it was presented. So what does it carry? It's a statement of simple numbers. We are going to have this revenue. We are going to have this expenses. So we are going to spend in the coming financial year. These expenses we are going to spend on interest, on salaries, pensions, defense, on Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, all those kinds of schemes. But for these expenses we need revenue. So this is the revenue we are likely to get. Okay, remember, you and I make we tailor make our expenses depending on our income. Okay, we have income of X amount, then we look at, okay, we have this income, so let's fix certain salary. We are going to spend here. But the government does this way. Government looks at its expenses first. Oh, we need so and so much, so and so here we have to spend this, that. Then it says, let's look at how do we get this money. It's the reverse case. Okay. So why was there no census since 2011? When will it be conducted? Okay, as in when it will be conducted, Aishwarya, you and I hopefully will be included in that. As of today, there is no deal on that. 2020, it was to be conducted in 2020, but COVID happened. 21, 22, 3 years went by, and now this year we have elections. Most likely, the work will start after the elections. Yeah, let's hope it works that way, at least that way. Okay. Jyoti Power has public account contains CRR also. No. CRR is different. Cash reserve ratio is related only to banks. Okay, that's the money that banks have to keep with the RBI. Cash reserve ratio is the amount, is a percentage of total deposits a bank has, and that should be kept with the RBI. Okay. I think I have a lot of questions here, but any which way. Oh, I think, yeah, let's get back to that. So what are these terms? Easy to understand. See this? Yeah, absolutely easy to understand. So I'll just make it smaller, shorter. So I have the window here, my friend, so I'm trying to put it to a side. Any which way, what are revenue receipts? See, these receipts relate to our incomes. The government's income from tax revenue. What kind of taxes? GST, which is an indirect tax. Goods and services tax is an indirect tax. Central excise, which is the indirect tax. Corporate tax, which is a tax on company income, and income tax, which is the income, which is a tax on individuals' income. Or corporate tax and income tax are direct taxes we pay. Okay, and indirect taxes are ultimately we pay them, but we pay them indirectly. We buy a biscuit packet, we buy this, let's say this phone, there is a GST on this, so it's indirectly included. What is dividend? This is a very complex thing. Dividend, just a second. Dividend is simply put distributed profit. Simple bhasha, simple language, 2 words, distributed profit. Let's say a company makes profit. Okay, you are a shareholder. The company makes, let's say, 1 lakh profit, 1 lakh profit, and it makes 1 lakh profit, and you own, let's say, 100 shares. The company decides to declare a dividend. It says, okay, we will distribute the entire profit. So what it does is, it divides the total profit it makes, by the number of shares. So you get per share profit. You multiply by the number of shares you hold, you would get your dividend. Simply put, dividend is a return on capital invested in shares. It's a return on capital invested in shares. In other words, it's distributed profit. Companies distribute the profit they make. That's why it's called distributed profit. Stamp duty is all on assets, basically, land deals, all that stuff. So from there, I'll come to that, shares. What is the difference between the real rate and nominal rate? We'll come to that in a while. Okay, when we look at the exact numbers, okay, what are real rates and everything. Rishita has a question: what could be the possible reason for not presenting the economic survey? I think to a large extent the government is saying that, look, we are presenting an interim budget. Elections are going to come in the days to come, so we are not likely. We don't want to come up with this full-scale economic survey, full-scale budget. So I'll come to budget now in a while, just a while. Just give me 5 minutes before we discuss this. Before we, let's finish this first. What's revenue expenditure? This is where we don't create any asset. The government spends money, does not create asset. It does not build a dam. It does not do anything. It pays salaries of employees, government employees. It pays salaries of pensions of government employees, and it gives subsidies when we buy a gas cylinder. Yeah, the government gives a subsidy. When we go for university education, there is a subsidy there because universities start pretty low. Okay, government schools, most government schools have very low fees, so it's all subsidized. I have a separate slide on subsidies, so I'll come to that in a while. Okay, guys. So basically, they don't relate to. We have a lot of revenue expenditure. I'll show you that graph also, that table also. What are capital receipts? This is money coming in. The money coming in through assets. So the government says, these capital receipts don't lead to any kind of debt creation. These are called non-debt creating receipts, non-debt receipts. They don't lead to any debt. To earn this, the government does not have to borrow. So it would have, let's say, it would have lent to Bangladesh. The money comes back. That's a recovery of a loan. Okay. Grants received. Sometimes we get a grant from some country, some organization. Let's say the World Bank gives a grant to us. Okay. We borrow pretty little from the World Bank, by the way. So the government, the World Bank gives us a grant, or the Japanese government gives us a grant, no interest, take it kind of thing. Sometimes we are not even expected to repay it. That's a grant. What is a disinvestment? A very simple definition of disinvestment is this: sale of government shareholding. Sale of government shareholding in public sector companies without transfer of management control. Let me repeat. It's a sale of government shareholding in public sector enterprises without transfer of management control. Okay. Now, this is where the government sells. Let's say it owns, there is this company called Coal India Limited. Coal India Limited. It owns, I'm just giving you estimate, 80%. Government says, okay, we need paisa. Let's sell 5% of this paisa, shares. So they sell 5% of whatever they hold, 5% shares in the market. What are they doing? They are disinvesting. When you invest, you put in money. When you disinvest, you take out money. So the government is simply selling a part of their shareholding without giving any management control to the purchasing company. Okay. Now, this is different from what is called privatization. Privatization. What is privatization? Privatization is, yeah, I wrote this the right spelling. Privatization is where the government, it's disinvestment plus transfer of management control. Disinvestment plus transfer of management control. Like for example, Air India. The government of India not only sold its shares to Tata Group, but it also handed over management control to Tata Group. That's why it's called privatization. So it was given to a private party. Okay, complete shareholding, basically, more or less complete. Got the idea? Yeah. So the government of India had been trying to resell, a lot of companies had been trying to disinvest, at least some of them. But now you know the difference between when the government of India says we want to disinvest, we want to sell, or we want to carry on with disinvestment in Central Bank of India, Indian Overseas Bank. Remember, it's not disinvestment, it's privatization. They want to sell the banks. Okay. Disinvestment is without transfer of management control, isn't it? Now let's look at capital expenditure. This leads to creation of assets, building airports, roadways, all that stuff. In short, this is what is called capex. What is it called? Capex. Okay. So let's look from here. Let's go to something simple. Ladies and gentlemen, now let me bring in, before we discuss this, let me bring in something important. What is an interim budget? The newspapers are full of the fact that this was an interim budget, not a full-fledged budget. And we mentioned this in the beginning as well. That was the title of our presentation, Understanding the Interim Budget 2024-25. What is it? See, a full-scale budget is about revenues and expenditures. Revenues and expenditures. That's one. Two, an interim budget is, normally it focuses only on expenditure part. So there is a particular term in economics called vote on account. Vote on account. What is the vote on account? Under Article 116 of the Constitution of India, Article 116 of the Constitution of India, a vote on account grants the government, let me put it, vote on account grants permission to the government of India, grants permission to the government of India to withdraw money from consolidated fund. Remember this, to withdraw, just withdraw. Grants permission to the government of India to withdraw money from the consolidated fund of India. Usually this is a short-term arrangement, because now the elections are going to happen. Morally, they say, legally, morally, the outgoing government has no right to decide the priorities for the coming financial year. Let the elections happen. Whichever government comes in place, comes into power, they will decide where they should spend money and how should they get revenue. Okay. So for the short term, till the elections are going to happen, vote on account will be granted, will be taken with the central government. It will be presented to through the budget to be presented to the parliament, and a permission will be sought from the parliament. Look, we need money for the short term. Please give us permission. Permission is given. That's it. So it's basically for the short term. Vote on account is about withdrawal of money from the consolidated fund of India for the short term expenditure. That's it, nothing else. Okay. So you have a lot of questions. Anything here about this? Okay, one then I'll get money. Vote on account is sought by the central government, by the government of India, ruling party, which makes the budget. It says, here is our proposal. We are going to hold elections in the next 2 months. Okay, next 2-3 months, basically, whenever it is, because it's short term, end of the financial year. Because we are going to hold elections in the near future, we don't have a moral right to set priorities for the incoming government. So we want, honorable members of parliament, we want you to give us permission to withdraw money for the short term. Short term, that's it, nothing else. So money is the same as a budget thing, but the money is withdrawn for the short term, nothing else. Now I want you to know something about the current government. In the current budget, did you see any kind of populism? Did you see any kind of freebie? The government is going to give this for free? No. What does it show? The government did not use freebies. Usually outgoing governments shower, we are going to give you gas cylinder at 500 rupees. We are going to make buses free for you, yeah, especially the women, for the women folk. We are going to bus rides, we are going to give you bus rides are free every month. We are going to give you the farmers are told, instead of giving you 6,000, we'll give you 9,000 rupees per annum. So the current government hasn't done anything in this. What it shows is the confidence of the Bharatiya Janata Party that it is going to come back to power. It is going to be back in power. So this is the kind of confidence they are shown through the budget. So essentially, what the government didn't say is more important than what it said. What it said is, this is a budget for the near future. We are going to spend like this. We are going to get revenue like this. This is what they said. But what they didn't tell you and me is that we are going to come back to power. By the mere absence of freebies, populism in normal word Bhasha mein, it's called populism. Making popular demand, popular, what's saying, giveaways. So they, they didn't give away anything. And I think somewhere down the line, the Ashray Chaturvedi says free 300 units of electricity from rooftop solar. No, please understand. It is not free. It is only for a limited number of people. You please read this. There is a lot of fine print in this. Lot of fine print. And this is one of the favorite programs of the government of India. Rooftop solar installation. It's called the Pradhan Mantri Suryodaya Yojana. Okay. So you need to understand that the government is putting its money where its heart is, where the Prime Minister's heart is. They want you and me to reduce consumption, through fossil fuels, electricity, thermal power plants and all that. So they are going to reduce all this. The 300 units of electricity, there is a lot of fine print. Please read that, Ashray. Okay, you will be surprised. Anyway, it's not big money. You should know this also. In fact, today's Hindu has an editorial on this. I did not read the editorial, but it has the editorial. Okay, I keep an eye on all these things, my friends. I, as your teacher, would want you to read extensively. The more you read, the better your understanding of things around. Okay, so let me tell you something more. Oh, this is my favorite. This is in the budget. This is my favorite document. When it comes to the overall budget season, it's an economic survey. So what is this? You see this now. This is called budget at a glance. At one glance, this will tell you the state of affairs. Kitna, money. What is the source of money of the government of India? Where are they going to spend major accounts? Look at this. What does it carry? Let me tell you. It carries 4 parts. The actuals for 2022-23. 2022-23. Then budget estimates. Okay, let me start from the right. You see this. The coming financial year, this is their estimate. Coming financial year, the one that is going to start on 31st, on the 1st of April. So let me see. What is the revenue they're expecting? 30 lakh crore rupees. Hey, it's in rupees crore, man. Okay, 30 lakh crore rupees, of which they expect the tax revenue to be 26 lakh crore. Okay, that's something interesting. They expect 30 lakh crore rupees. This is going to be 10% more than 10 of about 15% of this money. So last year's budget deficit, when the budget was presented for the last financial year, the current financial year, they made an estimate of this, and now they are expecting the estimate to be this. So they say that we are going to earn about 30 lakh crore rupees in revenue receipts. Okay, now This includes what is it, stamp duty and all that stuff. We discussed this now, non-tax revenue thing. This is GST, income tax, all that stuff, corporate tax. This is stamp duty, all that stuff. Yeah. Now let's look at this capital receipts. They are looking at 17 lakh crore rupees. The total, if someone would ask you what's the size of the union budget, tell them this is the size. What is it? Expenditure. The total size is 47,65,768 crore. Take 48,000 crore, round figure. 48,000 crore. Yes, Vismaya. Fines, penalties all come under non-tax revenue, but don't worry too much about it. Depends on the kind of fine. Again, the kind of fine. So, okay, let's look at something more here. Now, let's come to this particular second column here, budget estimates. Last year when the budget was presented, the government of India made certain assumptions that look, we are going to get a revenue of 26,32,281 crore. Second column, please. Okay, but all these subjects, these are all conjectures, these are all estimates, just estimates, like it says budget estimates. Okay, things may change. If there is a drought, there is a flood, there is a major disaster somewhere, international situation is bad, things may change. Okay, if growth is very good, revenues will be great. If the economy it does exceptionally well, GST numbers, corporate tax numbers would be better, would get better. No, given that these are all estimates, they will be subject to revision. So the finance minister now revised these numbers. She says we were expecting a revenue of 26,32,000 crore, but now we expect the revenue to be slightly higher, 26,99,000 crore. You understand this? So the revenue is going to be 68. My math is bad. So anyway, it's 67,000 crore more, my friends. See the difference? Revised estimate minus budget estimate, you will get the revision, the difference, and the difference is the higher. Now it's higher actually. They were expecting lower, now they're going to get slightly higher. Okay, because GST collections have been pretty good. Look at some other things, but more than GST. See, the GST collections are not have been good, but overall corporate tax has gone down. Okay, so from 232 it's 232, 233 it's 232, but look at non-tax revenue, it's gone up drastically. Penalties, fines, everything. Yeah. Now, look at the revenue now. The revenue. Look at this. This is the same as expenditure. You may wonder, if the expenditure is the same as the revenue, where is the need to borrow? What is this fiscal deficit about? Hello, the revenue includes, the total receipts include borrowings. The revenue, now all these things include borrowings. Look at this. Let me clear this now. One major figure the government of India is always worried about is this one, fiscal deficit. Fiscal deficit. So, I think Bhavani, I mentioned that why the revisions are made, on what basis. Revisions are made on, depending on, on, it's all contextual, like, so revisions are based on the state of the economy, external situation, internal situation, political stability, economic stability, all that stuff. So natural disasters, climate change. Okay, now look at this fiscal deficit. What is fiscal deficit? Simply put, between the government's expenditure, between the government's revenue and expenditure, there is always a gap. This gap is called deficit. Normal Pasha, budget deficit. What is it called? Budget deficit. Normal Pasha. Okay. So between revenue and expenditure, there is a deficit. The government of India needs money to bridge this deficit. This borrowing the government of India does is called fiscal deficit. I have spoken of fiscal deficit in a common man's bhasha. So if you look at revenue of 100 rupees, expenditure of 120 rupees, you know what is the deficit? Deficit is 20 rupees. Now, how much are we? See, there is a deficit already of 20 rupees. Now, how much are we borrowing? We are going to borrow another 20 rupees. So the actual deficit is 40 rupees. 20 gone, already not there, another 20 borrowing, so 40. So how much are we going to borrow to bridge this gap? Look at that, there is a formula for this. 9, what is 9? Let me clear this. Too many things here on the 9. Total expenditure. 9 is total expenditure. Okay, 47 lakh crore. Take round figure, 47 lakh crore rupees. Okay, minus 1 plus 5 plus 6. What is 1? Revenue receipts, 30 lakhs. Okay, minus 30 plus 5. No, recovery of loans plus other receipts. See, to create this, you don't require any, you don't have to borrow, it's already there. So look at this. Okay, 5, 29 plus 50. So now if you look at all these things, you will get a total deficit of how much? 16,85,494 crore, or 16,85,000 crore. My friends, ladies and gentlemen, please understand that is the borrowing of the government of India this year, that is the coming financial year. So they are going to borrow a total of 16,85,000 crore rupees. One more thing, you look at this. They estimated the total borrowing this year of 17.86 lakh crore rupees. But they actually revised that number to 17.34. So look at, they are going to borrow a 50,000 crore less. This is a phenomenal achievement. They are going to borrow 50,000 crore less. And this fiscal deficit is always defined in terms of percentage of GDP. You see this number here, 5.9% of GDP, 5.8% of GDP, 5.1%. So what is the total GDP? Let's look at this. Let me clear this first again. Okay. Oh, yeah, it's here. The nominal GDP for the budget, for the coming financial year is likely to be 327 lakh crore rupees. 327 lakh crore rupees. Fair? But how much are we assuming? We are assuming a growth of 10.5% over 296 lakh crore rupees. So the current financial year, our GDP will be 296 lakh crore. In the coming financial year, our GDP is likely to be 327 lakh crore rupees. Okay, see the difference now, 10.5%. 10.5% was on paper. You may say, hey Bharat, you mentioned about the GDP growth rate around 7.3%, but here you are talking about 10.5%. From this, my friends, you deduct a nominal inflation rate of 3.2%, you will get 7.3%. So from nominal, remember a while ago someone had asked me what the difference between nominal and real rate. Nominal is 10.5 minus inflation. Okay, this is 7.3. So minus always inflation. So real rate is, what is the real rate? 7.3. So nominal minus inflation gives you the real rate of return. Okay. Now Sushmita is asking, where do you borrow from? Oh, Sushmita, that's an interesting question. We borrow from a lot of sources, Sushmita. Maybe some other class we could discuss this, but right now we are running short on time, and I want to discuss what happens if we have a lot of fiscal deficit. But just to bring in one, okay, plenty of people are asking the same question. Shaurya, we have Snehil, we have Sushmita. Vachika is saying that we borrow from the IMF and World Bank. Not really. We don't borrow from the World Bank and the IMF. Most of our borrowings are from the general public of India. Bonds. Those public accounts we said, that's also borrowing. Okay. So the government of India borrows money through RBI. Let's say RBI issues a bond, 1,000 rupees. There are plenty of sources. I'm giving you an example. Okay. the government says, okay, there is this 1,000 rupee bond, 1,000 rupee bond. Okay, Bharat, you pay 1,000 rupees. You pay 1,000 rupees, and we will give you, this paper. This has a term of 8 years. Let's say, just example, 8 years, and this has an interest rate of 7%. So what the government is saying is, you pay 1,000 rupees. You pay us 1,000 rupees. We'll give you this paper. This will mature after 8 years and will carry an interest rate of 7%. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is how the government forms a bond. Basically, it's a fixed deposit to the government. It's a fixed deposit from the government. So Yash says the government borrows from Ambani and Adani. Life, unfortunately, Yash, life is not so simple. Okay, we may make fun of people like Ambani and Adani. They run thousands of crores of companies worth crores of rupees, lakhs of crores of rupees. They provide employment to millions of people. Okay, directly, indirectly. And it is very easy to laugh, but very difficult to create the kind of ecosystem they have created. And irrespective of whoever is at the center, these companies have thrived. Okay, so these are what is called politics neutral companies. So if you look at Adani, they have, while the Congress party leader might say something, Adani chore or whatever they say, the same Adanis are signing deals with the Congress government in Telangana. They signed it with Ashok Gehlot government of Congress government in Rajasthan, with Mamata Banerjee's government in West Bengal. So don't read too much into politics. Keep it simple. It's all money. It's all money. Okay. So this is where the government borrows, my friends. One is RBI, which issues bonds on behalf of the government. It borrows from the public accounts. It borrows from a lot of other sources. IMF and World Bank, we barely borrow about $5 to $7 billion. Peanuts. Okay. So what is this subsidy about? So, Yash seems to agree with that. I'm sure tomorrow you would want to work for one of those guys in a very high position. Now, why is this? Look at the subsidies. Why fiscal deficit? We mentioned this, so I'm not going to take you there, and I discussed this quite elaborate for you guys. Okay, let me take you why it's a bad idea. Why it's a bad idea. The most important part of our discussion would be on this, and maybe a little on subsidy, but this is the most important part. We have already looked at all the important terms. Okay, I hope you have benefited from this session. Please share feedback also. It would help us do better, my friends, in the days to come. We have a large team and everyone's working very hard to get this to you. So why? Look at this. The first question I raised is that the government of India has done a very good job of borrowing much less than its earlier estimate. You may say, hey, it's 5.8, man. Earlier they had said 5.9. What's the big deal? Well, 0.1% is 50,000 crore, isn't it? And that's a lot of money. Why is it good to stay within limits? It's always good, of course. But what if the government of India borrows more than what they have targeted, 5.1%? See, things may go bad. These are only estimates. They may always go bad, my friends. It's always, these things go bad. So why a high fiscal deficit is a bad thing? It's bad for all of us. Why? I show you. See, a higher fiscal deficit means the government borrows a lot of paisa. It borrows paisa. When it borrows paisa, it creates demand for money. When it creates, listen to, I will build a story one by one, short sentences, one by one. One thing will lead to the another. Higher government borrowing would mean greater demand for money from the government. Government needs a lot of paisa. When the government needs paisa, it would borrow from us, from general public, from the banks, from the market, bonds, whatever. So money, is lent to the government. So when money is lent to the government, why is the money lent to the government? Because when you lend to the government, you carry zero risk. Your money carries zero risk when you lend to the government. The government of India has never defaulted on its payments to its lenders. If you buy a bond, you will never ever lose money from the government of India. Yes. So lending to the government carries zero risk. So you lend. But when the government borrows from the market, there is less money available in the market for other persons. Who are these other persons? Consumers like us. We want to borrow for, we want to borrow for buy a house, buy a car, buy a mobile phone, buy a TV, buy an AC. Okay, and if you're a business person, you would want to borrow to invest in the in the production capacity. So as consumers and producers, we would need money, but the money is in short supply because a lot of money has gone into the government, which is borrowing a lot. Okay, now less money in the market would mean interest rates increase. When interest rates increase, loans become expensive. You and I will have to pay higher interest to borrow money. For what? To, when you borrow money from a bank, earlier it was 5%, now it could be, earlier it was, let's say, 10%, now we may have to pay 11%. So we have to pay more. More would mean that things become expensive. If you are a producer, you are like, 1%, it's eating into my profits. It's leading to a higher cost of production. This is, this is eroding my competitiveness in the market. And if I think like, if I borrow now, I may have to pay more money to the bank in interest. So I don't want to buy a house now. I don't want to buy a car. Okay. So what happens? Producers, see that the demand has fallen from a lot of people. When you have a home loan, you're paying more. Let's say you already have a home loan, your EMIs go up. When your EMIs go up, the money that you have for other expenses goes down. When it goes down, you cut your expenses elsewhere. Okay, so your demand for goods and services decreases. When your demand for goods and services decreases, your the producers already sense that and they cut down on production. When they cut down on production, they see that the costs are rising. When the costs are rising, they fire people. When they fire people and reduce economic activity, what happens is that it leads to lower employment generation and overall lower demand. So it's a bad thing, my friends. It's a very, very, very bad thing. Okay. Okay. Why would Moody's? There's this question here. Why Moody's or S&P downgrades a country's ratings? Dheeraj is asking. Dheeraj is asking this simple question, like Moody's. Moody's is a credit rating agency. Okay. So what it does is it assesses the creditworthiness of a company or a country or an individual. We have a CIBIL rating. Yeah. A lot of credit ratings these days. So what happens is that these companies, Moody's and S&P, there is a company called Fitch, all American companies. What they do is this: they rate and they give what is called a credit rating. Credit rating, basically credit rating. The highest is AAA. Highest is AAA. The last one is junk, D- or C-. Basically, junk means if you put your money here, you're gone. Your money is more or less gone, my friends. Okay. But if you have a AAA rating, if your money is invested in AAA, if it's a AAA company, then it's not that you may not default. The likelihood of this company defaulting is minimal. AAA rating means the likelihood, the probability of a default is minimal. It's not that it won't. It may not default. That's what the risk is very low. Okay. India has, I think, B-. So the government of India has been asking these agencies that, look, you need to upgrade. Now you may wonder, what difference does it make? It makes a lot of difference. See, if the credit rating in India goes up to investment grade, which is B+ or something, I'm not very sure, because different agencies have different rating patterns. So if it's B+, or if we come to A, we come to AA, A, or whatever, what happens? A lot of mutual funds around the world, a lot of investment banks will come to India to invest in the stock market, which would mean that we get foreign exchange. I'll tell you how it works. A foreign mutual fund, let's say in America may, may have this, it may tell its investors, look, we are going to invest, your money will be safe because we are going to invest only in AAA countries, AA countries, A countries, or AAA companies, AA companies, or A companies. So your money is safe. Will they invest in a B plus company, B plus country? No. So that money does not come to you. You got the idea? So it is very important to have an at least investment grade rating. Look, these companies, they work in a very weird way. In the 2008 financial crisis in the US, there were companies that went bankrupt overnight and they had AAA rating. They had AAA rating. Bear Stearns was one company. Lehman Brothers, both of them had AAA rating and they went bankrupt overnight. This was a 144-year-old company. Okay, and Bear Stearns was sold for $1. Yes, $1 it was sold for $1. Okay, so don't worry too much about these companies. they have their own ways, and there are multiple interests at play. Okay, last thing, my friends, I don't want to discuss allocations and everything. Where does the rupee come from? The rupee comes from here. See, for every rupee we earn, how much? Look at the numbers. Yeah, I think the number is slightly wrong. It should be about 45,000 crores or something. It should be 45,000 crore. I think I got the number wrong, my friends. Does not matter. Okay, I think I did not upgrade this number, my friends. This is the number. Okay, but remember one thing, ladies and gentlemen, these things don't change. The one on the right does not change because I had taken it from the. So this is 47,000 crore. Okay, my apologies, my friends. I think I just didn't change the number. 47 lakh crore rupees of this. Where does the money come from? We get 19% of this paisa from income tax. 19 paisa. Okay. Central excise duties are on manufactured goods manufactured. Okay. Corporation tax, typically on company income, company or corporations, basically company income. You see this income tax we mentioned. Look at borrowings. We are going to borrow 28% of our paisa. 28% of this 47,000 crore is going to be borrowed. See this, that's the kind of borrowing we have. Okay, but when we have 28% borrowing, the money also needs interest payments. We borrow, yeah, it would require, what we say, interest payments. 20 paise, I think 20 paise goes in interest payments. For every 1 rupee, 20 paise goes in interest payments. So 47 lakh crore rupees that we're going to spend, 20%, my friends, that's about 9,40,000 crore rupees will go towards interest payments. That's a lot of money, my friends. Imagine if you borrow less, what would happen? That's what the government of India is trying to do. It's trying to borrow less. Now, are we going to stay here for another 5 minutes? I'll complete the talk on, I'm going to talk about subsidies. Is it okay if we stay here? Yeah, I don't have a problem. Okay. I really never have a problem with sharing learning. Chalo, I think I see a lot of people, a lot of you saying that yes, we don't have a problem. Let's look at this. Subsidies. Why are these important? What's a subsidy? Simply put, subsidy is an under recovery. Normal bhasha mein, it's under recovery. You don't have to exert a lot. It's simply put under recovery. Other bhasha, ordinary bhasha, it's called discount. It's called discount. I'll tell you how it works. You go to a store and you ask for a pen. The actual pen is, let's say, 10 rupees. Okay, you get it for 9 rupees. The 1 rupee is what is called discount. The dukandar gives you 10% discount. The shop guy gives you 10% discount. So you get 1 rupee discount. If you had gone, let's say this is the government now, 10 rupees the cost price. Okay. The delivery price or the sale price for the government is 9 rupees. This 1 rupee is called subsidy. Simple bhasha, na? What is discount becomes a subsidy, in the case of the government. So it's the same thing, but words change, names change. How does they change? I'll tell you. You look at this, if when we get into bus, we pay a fare, FARE. Okay, we use electricity, we pay tariff, TARIFF. We lend money, we get interest. Okay, when we invest in shares, we get dividend. Got this? When we use a property or some asset, we pay rent. So everywhere money is exchanging hands, but it is called differently in different contexts. Okay, similarly here subsidy is discount. The government gives different kinds of subsidies. It has food subsidy, fuel subsidy, education subsidy, transportation, especially railway subsidy. It gives subsidy on LPG. It gives subsidy on what we say, you could say healthcare. Yeah, you go to a government hospital, if an X-ray outside would cost 500 rupees, here it would cost 100 rupees or less. Okay, because everywhere the government gives discounts. There are three major kinds of subsidy you should know, my friends. These are fertilizer, food, and fuel. Fuel I put as petroleum because earlier fuel included kerosene. Now the government doesn't give any subsidy on kerosene, so it's only petroleum. Petroleum is also not petroleum. Strictly speaking, it's LPG, liquefied petroleum gas. Okay, yeah, liquefied petroleum gas. So let me tell you this. How does fertilizer subsidy come? Ordinary bhasha. I'm not going to use technical language, as you must have seen, all of you, or I think we started with some number and it's still a considerable number that we have now. My friends, you please understand that we give subsidy in food, in LPG, and fertilizer like this. Let's say I'm a poor farmer. I go to a fertilizer store and I ask for the bag for a bag of fertilizer. The guy might say, "Hey sir, it will cost you 900 rupees. It will cost you 900 rupees." Now I'm a poor guy. I can't afford to spend 900 rupees. So the government says, "Okay, Bharat, it's 900 rupees, but you pay 500 rupees for this bag. The rest of 400 rupees we will pay." So the government gives an indirect, sometimes direct subsidy. Indirect it to fertilizer companies, and directly if I buy from cooperatives. So subsidy comes. Okay, what is the subsidy? Look at this. They estimated last year the subsidy to be, fertilizer subsidy to be 1.75 lakh crore, but now the number is likely to be this much, 1.88 lakh, 1.89 lakh crore. That's a lot of subsidy, my friends. Yeah. Now this number, they say 1.64. Again, it may go up. It may go up if things go bad, my friends. The government, see, look, we are a country who, by very definition, are a welfare state. We are a welfare state. We are a welfare state. So when COVID pandemic happened, the government had two goals. One, to increase capital expenditure to boost economic recovery. To increase capital expenditure, roadways, railways, airways, building new airports. You require a lot of cement, concrete, people to build all that. Yes, you generate employment and all this. So you create employment like this. When you build a road, you create demand for coal. Yeah, you create demand for iron ore. Look at the expressways. What goes into an expressway? You create demand for everything like that. And we have programs, dedicated programs for this, infrastructure programs, like, for example, road connectivity, Bharatmala. You have port connectivity, Sagarmala. You have airport, increase in airports, number of airports, and increase in air routes through Udan, Ude Desh Ka Aam Nagrik. So we have plenty of, what we say, programs like this, infrastructure programs. So one was to boost capex, increase capex, capital expenditure, to create assets which would help in boosting, recovering, enhancing economic growth. That's one. Two, to increase spending, welfare oriented spending, development oriented spending, to increase the social safety net. I'll tell you how it worked. Who is this social safety net for? For the poor, for the marginalized. You and I are lucky people. We have access to food all the time. Yeah, a lot of people in India don't. So we need to take care of such people, is what the government came up government said in 2020. So it said we will give food subsidy, of to the tune of 1.97 lakh crore. Take 2 lakh crore, but they spent more than this, my friends. They spent more than this. See this. Okay, 2.212. This includes food grains for 80 crore people in India. Okay, PM Garib Kalyan Yojana. Garib Kalyan Yojana is going to give free food grains through this scheme. The government of India is going to give free food grains to 80 crore people, my friends, for another 5 years till December 2028. Till December 2028, the government of India is going to give free food grains for 80 crore people, and they are likely to expand, how much? Nearly 2.05 lakh. This is an estimate. I think it will come to 2.5 lakh crore rupees as the price of everything goes up. So how will the price of things go up when government borrow? Where does the government get rice and wheat? Farmer. The farmer get MSP, minimum support price. Okay? So plus this transportation cost from the farmer to the warehouse. From there, storage cost. From there again, from transportation cost to the ration shop, PDS store. Got the idea? Everything transportation cost. So rice would come to something like 27 rupees and wheat would come to 37 rupees. I'm taking, these are more or less the right numbers actually. But while the government of India spends 27 rupees on procuring 1 kg of rice, it sells 1 kg of rice at 2 rupees and 1 kg of wheat at 3 rupees. Think about it, man. So look at the spending of the government of India. Okay, so huge spending happens, huge losses happen. But this is a welfare state, so we need to take care of our people, my friends. People who are the less fortunate, people who are poor, desperately poor, who live on the margins of the society. Okay, so food subsidy would go there. Then LPG cylinder subsidy. A lot of people in India get LPG, subsidy. We have about 16 crore gas connections. We are not talking of free gas connections. Okay, we have 16 crore gas connections, and you need to know one more thing here, that nearly 1 crore people have given up subsidy. How does the subsidy come? A gas cylinder, let's say, costs 1100 rupees. This is the cost price of the government of India, assuming. Okay, if my gas, see in India what happens is, when you go to a gas agency, they would take your Aadhaar number, your bank account number, and link everything. Mobile number, Aadhaar number, bank account number, and your gas connection number, all are linked. Okay, when they are linked, please know this, when they are linked, the government says, Bharat, you are paid, you don't have to pay 1100 rupees. You pay 1100 on bill. When it's delivered to your door, you pay 1100 on bill, but we will transfer a subsidy of 300 rupees. We will transfer this directly to your bank account through what is called direct benefit transfer. Direct benefit transfer. So this comes into my bank account. This is subsidy. This is subsidy. Okay. Think about it, man. How many gas connections? Hundreds of crores. There are 15 crore gas connections in India. Okay, see the subsidy loss. But the government of India did something remarkable. It started a scheme called PAHEL. What is it? PAHEL. PAHEL, my friends, means initiative. The government of India said, and with huge posters of Prime Minister Modi, if you can afford to forego subsidy, please forego subsidy. Pay the entire bill, 1100 rupees or whatever the cost price is. The bill comes to you, whatever it is on it, please pay that. No subsidy for you. 1 crore households in India gave up subsidy. Imagine that. That's such a wonderful thing. This is how we are helping in building. Okay, 1 crore people gave up household subsidy, my friends. It's a very good thing. Now, how many free gas connections have been given under the PM Ujjwala scheme? 10.11 crore gas connections. Ujjwala scheme. Ujjwala, yeah, sorry, Ujjwala scheme. 10 crore free gas connections have been given under the Ujjwala scheme. 52 crore bank accounts have been opened. I'm taking round figure. It's 51.7. I'm taking round figure. 52 crore people now have bank accounts. Earlier, because of some lack of documentation or whatever, they did not have bank accounts. Now they have. Now, these 52 crore people have nearly 2.5 lakh crore rupees in their bank accounts. Not everyone has it. Round figure. 52 crore people, 52 crore bank accounts have nearly 2.5 lakh crore rupees, which means the banks can use this money to send in rotation. They can to earn money, to loans and everything else. Okay, so there are a lot of things that are working very well, my friends. Hopefully things go well from here. Okay, I think this is what I wanted to discuss. There are a lot more slides, but it's going to take, we are already, we have plenty of time. What we say, we are 15-20 minutes ahead of the schedule. All I would say is thank you. And if you have some feedback for us, good, bad, whatever, my friends, you always welcome. This is all from me. I hope you are okay with this. Something more, Snehil, thank you. You're amazing. Well. I'm a teacher. Amazing on not secondary. Yeah. Thank you for your kind feedback. Animesh, what is it? Nidhi has a question. Can you please go back to 3 major accounts slide? I'll give you the names of the accounts. Consolidated Fund of India. What is it? Consolidated Fund of India. Last 5 minutes we'll spend on this. Consolidated Fund of India, which is a main account of the Government of India, into which all revenues are deposited and all money towards expenses is withdrawn. The withdrawal can happen only through permission of the Parliament. Second account is Contingency Fund of India. This money in this account can be used only for, remember, only for meeting emergency expenses, unforeseen expenses, like we have earthquakes, floods, all kinds of things like that, disasters. Then the third account, public accounts. Okay, Nidhi? Public accounts. Public accounts are, they have money that are money that is owned by us, people like us, but is kept in government's trust. So your employee provident fund, okay, then postal savings, all these accounts are kept by the Government of India. They are kept in government's trust, but money is ours. The government uses its paisa. The government uses its paisa, and that's why it pays you interest on this. Where? So where the money comes, where the money goes. I think we'll try and do the one thing. We'll have this recording. It will be available. Okay, you can play this back, and I don't have an hassle because this will remain on your I think student homepage, or it will be available on your if you're part of any group or something, it will be there on your website, basically timeforeducation.com. And if you're part of any Telegram group, or I'm not very familiar with this entire thing, it will be there. Okay, that's all from me, my friends. Thank you for being here. You've been very kind. Lots of questions. I'm sorry for not taking all the questions, but thank you for being here. Stay curious. Thank you. Good night.